In the winners finals, they actually smashed Toronto.
This is a little short-sighted, I think, maybe. Like, don't disrespect insight like that.
Attach played his best that he's played all year. He was so clutch and so good in every single S&D.
Welcome to Reverse Sweeps Power Rankings, presented by USAA Insurance. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, joined by Pacman, but not Enable, John, because we lost him to the 5th major. He's gone.
He's gone. I think he's running away. He's supposed to give away his Gucci bag.
He knew he couldn't say that LAT was first, and he knew he had a Gucci bag he had to give to someone on Twitter. So unfortunately, we've lost him to Texas, and well, a lot of other teams lost in Texas themselves. Let's take a look at the result of how everything played out. Maybe a surprise, day number 1, Atlanta FaZe losing to Minnesota. Maybe not so much of a surprise, considering they're the ones who won the whole thing. Day 2, Dallas falling to Minnesota as well. OpTic falling to Toronto. And then day 3, well, Toronto would also seal their fate, going down 3-0 to Minnesota. As we move on, guys, New York not having the best run, but day number 4, that wonderful Sunday that we had, OpTic not able to get it done necessarily against Toronto. They were able to take down Dallas, but the big moment of the day, Minnesota with an incredible 0-4 reverse sweep comeback in a best-of-9, possibly one of the best comebacks we have ever seen in Call of Duty history. And you can see now how that all played out in the bracket. Minnesota marched their way through the top of the bracket, marched their way to the grand final, and against all odds, they were able to bring home their first major win for that organization. And Pacman, it was an incredible run from them.
I mean, that was the single best comeback that I've ever seen, maybe in just in esports, right? Just to be down 0-4 and the way they were down 0-4, none of the maps that they lost were even close. It was not a competitive series whatsoever.
When I saw people tweeting, they're like, well, this is boring,
right.
yawn, snooze,
It
like
was,
Toronto in 5.
It was legitimately boring, right?
Yeah.
And everyone was talking about the format and how this is unfair, but at the end of the day, great job to Ultra. You're playing amazing, which they were. And then the turnaround was so swift, and the way they did that, it was incredible. And just to cap off, probably the most amazing CDL tournament win that we've ever had.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible, guys. And, well, why are we all here, though? It's the power rankings. So let's bring those up and see how they've shifted after this major. And there's been substantial movement. Just not if you're Gorillas, they're still 12th, Pacman, and they still suck.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to get to game 5, which was good for them, but they didn't win, and that's what we expect. So, I mean, tough season for them, and I know they're going to go in the offseason hoping to remain on pro teams and whatnot, but I think we've beat down LAG enough.
Yeah, I mean, I even feel bad being snarky, because at this point, it's a bummer. It's a bummer because you don't ever want a team that just feels dead in the water the entire time, right? You want a team that at least has moments.
I mean, I feel like at least we got to see Apathy play well at the end of the season. I don't think he had the best season overall, but in this one match that he got to play, he showed everyone like why he's a champion and why he's considered one of the best players of all time. On LAN, he went out and played amazing. The team just fell short, and I mean, it just is what it is, but at least they came out and put up a good fight.
Now let's talk about London. They moved down 2 places, which maybe isn't exactly what you want heading to champs, but it might also not matter because London's not going to champs.
Not going,
but they are now in 11th. And why is that? Why'd you decide to bump them down?
I mean, that's just a virtue of, I think, Seattle just playing well again on LAN. But good thing for London, they have Afro, and he played really well on LAN. And
yeah,
people have been saying
solid. And yeah, it's like we talk about it all the time, right? Like the rookie jitters for first-time LAN event with a crowd. Very important too.
And people were worried about that with him. And since he played so well, I think that's a obvious and solid potential building block for the future for them next season. And they can move on with whatever they decide. Who knows? They might keep multiple pieces from the team or not. But they have a really solid piece to start with that other people want to come team with. And for me, that's really important. And at least we got to see that for London.
So hold on to Afro for now?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see with London. Unfortunately, guys, they will not be at champs, so their run did end with this major, as did Paris's. They are our 10th place team. They did not see any movement either. And it kind of feels like a little bit of a repetitive theme, right? When we talk about these bottom teams, they're still at the bottom. They're not going to make it to champs. But Paris, they did have some moments throughout the season, though.
Yeah, they did. They showed us that individually they have the talent. Zap just was on London at a point, played well. Tim started on LA Thieves, he was playing well. It's just, as a unit, they never actually clicked together. So it's a rough season overall for them. But I still think that we'll find a couple of those players in the league next season. Aqua, I think Aqua was solid the entire season, all season
Yeah, there were
long.
times at the beginning of the year, Aqua was playing exceptionally
At
well.
the highest, yeah, I think he was one of the top 5 ARs or so in the game. It's just when your team's not the greatest, it's hard to maintain that level of play for a long period of time. So I don't know. We'll see. There's just so many question marks going forward for those bottom teams. But
Right. Well, and that can be stressful too, depending on what happens with the league next year. Like
Oh,
these
yeah.
players, I mean, there's not enough room for everyone. And I can't imagine the stress that must put on players who maybe are in these teams who, you know, don't even have a chance to show themselves at champs to people for next year.
Right, yeah. Just, I mean, I guess you had a whole season to showcase your ability,
Right.
but at the end, it never feels like that. It's like, wow, that time got away from me so quickly. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Hopefully that players that are going through that now don't repeat that same mental process for the next season.
A reminder, Reverse Sweep is presented by USAA Insurance. They make it easy to insure your stuff like rigs and gear, and they have your back. Eligibility restrictions apply. Insurance provided by United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas. Florida, you moved down 3 spots to 9th. And when you pull up something like the bracket, you take a look at what happened with them, and it was just sort of, it just wasn't all that great. I mean, they lose subliners in losers round 2, a subliners that has not looked good.
They lost to a team that has not looked good, that went to Game 5 with Gorillas. And just in general, Florida on land is a disappointment. And when they go back online, they usually look a lot better. But there is no more online. We're just from here to champs. And I don't think they scare anyone. And again, essentially, New York was playing with a fill-in. I know that Diamond Khan is likely to stay on the team.
But it's the second time it's happened.
But realistically, he hasn't been on the team very long. So they haven't had much time to really build with him. But again, they still managed to get the win over Florida. And to me, that's just unacceptable out of Florida. You have what are supposed to be some of the best ARs in the league. Neptune's proven to be on the come up and play it fantastic. But when they come together on land, they fall short. We haven't even seen them put together any type of run. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to believe out of this or believe to see out of this Florida team, but I'm not getting it at all. They're exceedingly average, and I don't think they should be.
Well, yeah, and that can sometimes you can look at a team, right, and be like, okay, they're average. I expect them to be average. But when a team's average, but they shouldn't be, is frustrating, right? You get that sense of like, why are you not showing us what potential there could be there? It continues to just be sort of mediocre, unfortunately. And well, New York, that team we were just talking about, the team that knocked them out of the tournament, they are in 8th. They did not move. They still have Diamond Con in, and the New York team from start of the year to now, and they will be at champs, but they've had a rough go of it too in terms of like, you know, roster changes at the beginning of the year, roster changes mid-year, roster changes now.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
been a lot.
They have gone through a lot. I mean, when you start with just at the beginning with Zuma,
Yeah.
and then his hand and having to replace him with either Mac or Diamond Khan, I believe it was at the time, or Asim, or I think it was Asim actually. Sorry,
It was a scene.
Asim.
I think it was a scene.
Or
yeah.
Mac or Diamond Khan. They had to decide what to do with the roster, and then they get Hydra, and they actually come together. They look really good. They get that second place at one of the majors. Even in the major where they got 8th before, it was just unfortunate because Asim couldn't go. Right? He couldn't play on land at that event. So New York, to us, seemed to be on the right track, at least. And then with Clay deciding to take time off, it puts them in a weird position. And overall, you kind of have to feel for the New York organization if you're a fan of them, or just a spectator, right? You kind of feel for them and what they've been through. But at the end of the day, there's no time left for that. There's no time to feel sorry for them. You have to get the job done, and I don't expect them to go very far with their current roster. Clay was not only supposed to be their leader, but in game is a fantastic player.
Yeah, he's been
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Clay as an AR has been having a phenomenal year, exceptionally good. And yeah, I agree. It's just you can acknowledge that there were circumstances outside their control that really suck, to be frank. But at this point, it's like, well, you can't really just keep dwelling on it. You have to move forward. Easier to say for us sitting here than to be done, but who knows what they'll do at champs. Let's talk about Seattle, though. Up 4 spots. Seattle up 4 spots. This is happening.
All right. So this is twice now that they've given us similar LAN gameplay. So they beat London and Paris at both LANs. But then obviously this time they got the big one in beating Atlanta, who's the best team in the game, right? So Seattle has proven to us that, at least for them, LAN makes a huge difference. There's no denying that for them, LAN sparks something in them as people, sparks something in their gameplay, makes it more fair. Whatever it is, for them, it makes a huge difference. Now, I want to actually talk about this since I'm by myself and I have time, and Ian's not here to
He's
debate
not
it with
there
me.
chirping at you.
LAN and online, I've played. It's a difference. It's a huge difference, right? Like, you get BS online, you come on LAN, everything, all that's out of your head. You just play and, you know, the results come in, whatever happens, you just feel good about it because you know you weren't cheated in any way.
Right.
Right. But everyone likes to take the positive affirmation of their feelings about something and make that for the whole. Like, this wouldn't have happened if it was online, this wouldn't have happened if it was on LAN, blah, 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 blah. Right. Seattle is the only team, and I guess you could say ROKKR, but they were already a solid team that made this great LAN adjustment, right? This great change to their gameplay. Most of the results, if you look at all and from the last LAN as well, you would have predicted them based off the online gameplay that we've seen. Seattle's the outlier to that, in my opinion.
Right.
London losing, Gorillas losing, all those teams losing, they were also bad
Par
online.
for the course, yeah.
Par for the course, exactly. But people see something that they want to see and apply that to everything. And that's also just an emotional reaction to a situation, which is normal, I guess, for people. But logically, it's just Seattle. But we have to give props to them for that.
Oh, and
they
Classic played phenomenally
He did.
against FaZe.
Right. And then, of course, on my timeline, I see Classics and LAN. I'm on Classics, and he played amazing. But he also played on LAN for years and last major as well.
Right, that's very
Just
true.
throwing that out there.
That's very true. Context is important, right? Like, if you only end up hyper-focusing on what's happened right in front of you, you're gonna miss a lot of the important context surrounding it. But not to take away, Classic did play incredibly well against FaZe. FaZe stumbling there and getting eliminated by Seattle. I think I said Seattle, losers round 4, they'd get there and then they'd go out.
You
They'd
did,
get
but you
knocked
kind of
out.
just say things, you know?
Yeah, but sometimes when you say things, you're right.
You just kind of throw things out there, and then eventually some of them are going to stick.
And I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take this one. And, well, let's move on to LA Thieves. Guys, they moved up 1. LAT. Pacman, when you are looking through these, when you're making these, what goes into LAT? Why are you bumping them up?
Well, even through their losses, I like to see progress, right? Whenever I'm trying to bump teams up, I like to see that there's some sign of improvement in the future. And what I saw was an LA Thieves team that looked like more of their pieces were shooting well and playing well. So Slasher, to me, played a lot better than he was playing online. And for me, that's really important because usually just as of late, it's been Kenny and Draza.
Yeah.
Now, Draza did his thing still. He was amazing. Kenny played like Kenny does. But then Slasher stepped up his game, and they looked a little better. Their teamwork is still a bit off, which is why they're still down in 6th. But in general, it showed that these guys have it. If they play a little bit better, they figure it out, they can win some more games. And they did run into Dallas, who prior to this, I actually expected to do a lot better. So, but it was good games. It was good games. I think that they can go beyond where they are now, just because their individual talent is still absurd.
But they don't have much time to
Right.
do that.
The issue is the time with practice. They don't have much time to practice, but when you have that much individual talent, if it clicks on the right day, it can work, just like we saw with the ROKKR.
And I like it too, kind of for the storyline of Slasher, right? He's someone who has been extremely vocal on Twitter about how much he did not like online, how it was affecting him mentally, how much he prefers to be on LAN, and to kind of start seeing that come back a little bit with him too and having those better LAN performances. I like those storylines as well when you see kind of how that transitions for someone moving back on to LAN gameplay.
Oh yeah, that's true. And Slasher's one of those people also that is just going to be better on LAN. Just because when he's online, anything happens, it gets in his head. Rightfully so, because he's had such a brilliant LAN career. But, you know, when he wants to do it online and he knows he's going to be online, he's done it online, just like he did last year.
You can.
Where he started going off last year online. That's just because his mindset was, this is what we're given, and this is what I'm going to have to play.
Well, Dallas, we mentioned it, and Pac, you said it was disappointing. I have to agree with you. Dallas, you moved them down 3 to 5th, and I have to agree. I expected a bit more of that out of them at this major. This
was, to me, the most disappointing team at the major. Obviously, FaZe was the craziest team at this major, like with what happened to them. But for me, Dallas was the team that everything was pointed in the right direction. Everything was looking good. I actually predicted them to win this tournament. I thought Dallas gets so strong at this time of the year. Shotzi's gonna be
Crane's
the
up
best
great.
player in the game. Like this is what I thought going in. This is my predictions. And then when I watched them play, it was a very flat version of Dallas, losing their game 2. In the series against the ROKKR, the first one, I believe they came out and won that game 1, and the rest of the series, the ROKKR was by far the better team. They had better teamwork, more cohesiveness. I'm not really sure what happened with Dallas between Major 4 and 5, but they need to get that teamwork back. Because I don't know, it was just such a disappointing performance. I know Krim tweeted about it or something like that afterwards. He knows they just did not play well. That's the worst they played since they picked up Vivid. It was just not good.
Well, yeah, I think that's just one of the, especially out of what we saw from the last Major 4 Grand Final, goes that 9. It's a 6-4 finish on that S&D. I thought we were going to get that really hungry, red hot, like Illy's been playing better, like Vivid finally looked like everything you've said. And it was just kind of well, that was a bit of a letdown. But
So underwhelming.
OpTic finally placing better than they have before, no longer stuck in that 4th place spot. They were able to make their way all the way up to that semifinal and then into the losers final where they did end up falling 3-1 to Toronto. But John, what's happened to OpTic that's been the same for the last 2 majors when they've lost?
Yeah, they keep losing to the same team. They keep
In
getting
winners
double
and
jeopardy.
losers.
So last time it was Dallas, and this time it was Toronto. And I will say though, in general, OpTic played so much better this time.
I think they look better, yeah.
They played
100%.
so much better, and they showed us that they can actually be that team to get to a final. They were close. In the first winners match when they lost 3-2 Toronto, they were outplaying them in the respawn. They just couldn't. The S&D game from Toronto was just too strong. It's just. OpTic is finally showing us what we all talked about all season long: how much potential they have, how much individual talent they have, what they can do, and they finally hit that next gear, which is the reason why they ended up getting 3rd place. It's just unfortunate that they ran into a pretty red-hot Toronto team twice, but they did get over that hump. They beat Dallas on land. They won 3-2 against Surge, who was obviously feeling themselves. They were hot, and I mean they beat Surge 3-2 last time too, so it's just a good matchup for them. But OpTic showed that they can get to that final. They showed us this is the best tournament they've had so far, I believe, except for maybe Major 1, but I can't recall. Either way, Chicago now is in that spot where if they were to win champs, it wouldn't beyond shock me. Right? They're a really good team. They just have just that little bit extra to go, and I think they can get it done.
Yeah, but they look better, and I think that's the important part. I was impressed with OpTic from what I saw from them, for sure. And this is a team that we never talk about this early in the power rankings because there was not a reason to. But Atlanta FaZe down 2 spots to 3rd, no longer sitting in 1st, not even in 2nd. You move them all the way down to 3rd, all the way down to 3rd.
I mean, we always talked about it like we're like, well, when FaZe doesn't win, we're still gonna have them in 1st. But I think it's the way that they lost, going 0-2 out, not winning a series, losing to Surge. Even though you lose to the ROKKR, which in hindsight is not that shocking. At the time, it was extremely shocking just because we expect so much of FaZe.
Right. When you see the whole thing.
Right. We expect them to win all their matches. We blah, blah, blah. FaZe is FaZe for a reason. But that Seattle Surge map, no matter how you look at it, even though Seattle's playing better, FaZe is supposed to win that game.
Yes.
But that was the first time that we saw some of FaZe's players look human. Right. Yeah. Simp has been so good, so fantastic his whole entire career that he kind of spoiled us. Like we're like, what the hell is going on? Why are these games close? All right, you're supposed to close out here. Like you're supposed to have a 1.3 with 12,000 damage, and you're supposed to be the best. And sometimes it's just not going to be the case. And whatever was with the case with their teamwork, where now they lost.
Alec didn't look comfortable
no,
either.
Alec did not play well again. But he's had times like that before. But the team was still good enough to push through. So whatever happened now that's caused them to lose 3 or 4 matches and for them to be off, I mean, I'm sure they can acknowledge it within themselves that something needs to be fixed. It's why we have to move them down. Yeah. Had they played again the next, if they played the tournament again right now, do I feel like they'd go into? I don't. Yeah. Like I just feel like it could have been a bad weekend. Who knows? But we have to give props to those teams above them that played way more consistent.
Yeah. Well, I think something to note too, we all said it. We said the only way FaZe is moving out of 1st place is if they crash out of the tournament and get 0-2'd. And that is what happened. The least likely scenario is what happened. And yeah, I agree. You cannot keep them in 1st place despite the success they've had all year if you're going out like that. Toronto up 1. They are now in second place. Dallas occupied that spot for a while, and now it's Toronto. They made it back to a grand final. I thought they had it all wrapped up in a pretty bow, but they were not able to get it done. So
I almost put them number 1 anyways, just because of when I look at their longevity and how good they've been since stage 2. But I just couldn't do that to the ROKKR after that performance.
Yeah.
But Toronto honestly played so amazing. They really did. And all that's going to be remembered is their grand collapse ultimately in the final. But in general, they're such a good team and so consistent, and they've proven that they belong at the top. Cammy's been just lights out. Kleenex played phenomenally.
Insight's consistently have been such a huge pickup for them.
To me, it's no question. Insight's the rookie of the year. This team, if you told them this was going to be their case beforehand, they would have loved it, right? It just, this final was just so tragic, but they're so solid. They're such a good team, and they just ran out of gas, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and a phenomenal performance. It was good to see them back in a grand final, too. Not able to, unfortunately, get it done when you were really, really close for a while. But it is what it is, as Pacman loves to say, and that's why we're going to highlight our CDL Power Rankings Biggest Mover presented by Control Freak. The number 1 spot in the Power Rankings goes to Minnesota ROKKR. They come back in the most incredible comeback in a grand final, probably of all time. You're down 0-4, you win it 5-4. Minnesota finally get their first. I love that too, because they were in grand finals twice. At homestands last year, lost them both. They finally bring home a win.
Yeah, so this was probably the most unlikely win, simply because of their road. I had to move them up to number 1 because they beat all of the best teams in the game, minus OpTic. But that's just because of the road.
Toronto, FaZe, Dallas, they beat everyone.
They beat all of the best teams in the game, and they did it in a bunch of different ways. It wasn't like 2, 3, 5 wins. They were losing initial hard points, winning initial hard points, but no matter what, they were figuring out a way to win. And I think they deserve this move. It was incredible to watch them beat FaZe, and then I'm like, okay, well, they had a good day. They're gonna lose to Dallas, beat Dallas.
You're like, oh, okay.
In the winners finals, they actually smashed Toronto.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close, and I think Standy had one of the best tournaments I've seen from someone who's just entering into the league. Like, he played phenomenally in every single map of that comeback. He was going crazy. He was the best player for sure. When I look at it, Standy and like Insight as Rookie of the Year,
that's a conversation I've seen on Twitter as well. Everyone's been Standy Rookie of the Year.
That's not fair to Insight. Insight's been playing well for so long that I think that at least it gives Insight some competition. Let's put it that way. Standy played phenomenally, but Insight's been playing that well since stage 2. And Toronto's, I think they placed 3rd at their lowest.
Yeah, that's the argument you make, right? Like, yes, Standy had phenomenal LAN performance, but Insight, he won with his team. He's getting back to grand finals with his team. I think you can definitely have a good argument there, but for anyone to say, and that's nothing against Standy, but for everyone to say outright Standy is the Rookie of the Year, I'm like, this is a little short-sighted, I think, maybe. Like, don't disrespect Insight like that. He's been incredible.
It's just like, I mean, people have emotional responses to things, and when someone plays that well for that long, you have to kind of give them that love. But let's not jump the gun a little bit. But positively, we saw a great performance from Major Maniac. Attach played his best that he's played all year. He was so clutch and so good in every single S&D. Like, whether the stats showed or not, he made so many huge plays. He was their island player a lot, and he was getting things done. In order to beat Toronto in that final, they had to win, I believe it was 3 searches in those 5 maps, and Toronto's a fantastic search team.
Yes, they're very, very good.
To do that, and just nothing but glowing things to say about Minnesota.
So what do you think changed? Is it just LAN? Is it a crowd?
No.
I don't know. So they took Toronto's breathing exercises. Like, what do you think caused this monumental shift in Minnesota, and do you think it's gonna stay?
It's so hard to say. I mean, before this LAN, they were already starting to trend in the right direction. So
they looked a lot better at hard points.
They looked a lot better in hard points, and I really think that's simply it. They've always been good at search and destroy. But now that they went to LAN and started winning the hard points, I think that it gave them that confidence. And also, I don't think enough can be said about beating FaZe first. Just that confidence that it gives your team. Like, we beat these guys, we can beat everyone. And I know people just say that, but to actually feel that it's crazy. Like, this is the team that people can't beat, and we beat them. What stops us from beating everyone else? You can go from beating them to beating Dallas. So much of every time you hear me and Ian say like land and stuff and confidence, it really is that they gained that confidence beating FaZe. And I mean, it's impossible to say what made them that consistent, because usually it's, even if you do win a match like that, when you're not one of the top teams, you'll fall off. Like, you won't be able to continue with that level of play. But they did it, and if that's props to Brian Saint and Reppin as their coaches, or whatever it may be, whatever it is, they did it right, and there's not much you can say about that. It's impossible to know exactly what's going on inside their camp. Do I think that they can hold on to that? Meaning, do I think they're going to win champs?
Yeah.
If I was a betting man, which I am, I would not bet on ROKKR to win champs, just because I do think it's really hard to go back to back.
Yeah.
And then you're also coming against a couple teams that are pretty pissed off. Dallas, FaZe, those are top teams.
I know FaZe is not. Like, that's Simp's worst placing ever. I think maybe Abizi and Celium, maybe even Alec, I'm not sure. Like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. You're going to have to deal with some very angry other best teams in the game.
Exactly. And they get to see what you did. Like, now there's also a lot of recent gameplay from you on LAN, and they have enough coaches and stuff on these teams where they can break it down and see what you like to do, see all your tendencies, especially now that you're on the radar as a top team, a team to beat. So going back to back is going to be hard. I don't know.
I look forward to potentially being pleasantly surprised by what we can see from them at Champs, but that is our biggest mover, Minnesota, for a reason. They were absolutely incredible at this major, taking down all of the top teams and coming back from a huge, mind-blowing deficit 0-4 to win the grand final 5-4 over Toronto. Congratulations to Minnesota, and that's why they are #1 on the Power Rankings. Let us know what you think of the Power Rankings, as always, guys, in the comments, and we'll see you for Champs.